Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Y'all know where you are. You in the doctor's office, man. You know who I am, Dr. Julio. Austin Julio brought in the best fake doctor in social media. PhD's Fake the Facts is Real. And we back for another episode, Jack.
The intro. Go ahead.
But so if you watched our first episode, obviously we touched on a whole lot of different topics. You explained why you voted for Donald Trump. You explained, which you taught me something. I did not know that you had already done research on Kamala Harris and looked at the example of her being from an HBCU as a rationale for putting HBCUs at the level of PWIs. Mm-hmm. You touched on that yesterday.
Yeah.
So when you look at it from now being a black woman that has the level of notoriety, influence that you possess, what advice would you give to those upcoming black students, first of all, about making that choice between a PWI or an HBCU?
It's definitely that your degree is not any less valuable or not equivalent to that of an Ivy League, because an HBCU degree or even just the HBCU experience can put you in a lot of the same rooms as the Ivy League degrees. Like, I know people who graduated from Harvard, people who graduated from Yale, and they be right where I be at. So, and like we mentioned the other day, I didn't even finish. So, hey, but I will say, I did my 3.5 years, did my little bit. You feel me?
Hey, I did mine too.
I just happened to have a baby at the end, and I was like, ooh, this is a lot. So, but I would definitely let them know that the one, like I told you, the main thing that I liked about Kamala was she was an HBCU grad, and I would have liked to see that in the White House. But, of course, upon doing further research and stuff, she just wasn't the best candidate. And again, if HBCUs are already seen as less than, I wouldn't want her to get in office and be the person who makes everybody be like, we told y'all so. You feel me? Like, if she had got in and fumbled the economy, fumbled foreign policy, fumbled, immigration and everything like we knew she was going to, that would have fell on HBCUs, and that would have fell on black women with very high political aspirations. And so I would have loved, I did love seeing her in the White House for that reason. However, even with her being the vice president, you didn't see her really put HBCUs on like she could have. You didn't see her really even give as much love to Howard, her beloved alumni, like she could have. So even with her being an HBCU grad, I didn't see her elevate the HBCU space in the ways that I feel like she could have. And so hopefully the next person who's an HBCU grad, whether male or female, who makes a presidential bid, hopefully they would have a better resume and track record to stand on when it came time to nominate them for such a high office, and perhaps we could put our support behind them. But Kamala simply wasn't it.
So, it's funny you brought up her not putting Howard on like she could have, or not representing, as they say. She didn't speak to the group of people that were at Howard on election night, and you know I wasn't going to let you come up here and not ask you your thoughts on that.
That was, to me, that should have been the concrete evidence everybody needed to know that the nation made the right decision. Because clearly, in the face of conflict, during hard times, when it's not necessarily comfortable to talk in front of the nation, she couldn't even gather up the strength to speak to her supporters. So imagine being the president and you have half the nation that supports you, the other half doesn't like you. How can we expect you to be willing to address the nation in our times of need if you can't even address a small group of supporters? And so it's like, imagine if a terrorist attack had happened or a school shooting happens. Does this mean that we have to give you grace as the president and let you mourn and stuff like that without addressing the nation? No, you have to show strength and resilience if you want to hold such a high office. And that night, she proved to you guys that she didn't have either of those qualities. And considering the way foreign relations are right now and how there was a lot of tension leading up to this election, her going into office, just the way that she acted when she didn't get in office, also should let you know how she would have acted in these rooms where war is looming. And so how are you going to meet with a leader that's ready to wipe us off the face of the planet because and you're nervous, or you don't feel ready, or this is just so scary? Like, you can't do stuff like that, And so it's like, what's unfortunate is that also built a case for, the people who believe that misogyny is just so bad. But like, when people say that we're not ready for a woman president, that proved it. Because in that moment, she let her emotions get the best of her. And as a president, you simply cannot do that.
First of all, I love that response. I didn't know you were going to go that quite in depth with it, but I've had that sentiment for a minute. I was like, I think America is definitely progressive enough to enjoy the idea of a woman president. But my initial response was, how would she handle the world leaders that are 10 times more patriarchal and legitimately misogynistic than American men? Mm-hmm. Black men overwhelmingly voted for Kamala Harris. A large percentage of white women did, not quite as much as voted for Trump, but it's interesting that you bring that up. When you look at political office, is that something that you've considered running for years? I mean, I'm sure the thought is crossed your mind.
That's why I got into politics in the first place. I used to want to be an attorney, and then I took a government class, and I was like, oh, like, I can change the world on a case-by-case basis, or I can just change the law and, change the world that way. So I was like, I need to be a senator. And so that's really my end goal. So there it is, y'all. There's the exclusive. But yes, the end goal for me is the Senate.
I can understand. What are some of the things that, if you ever, I'm sure you're familiar with Larry Elder. Mm-hmm. His Breakfast Club interview, he's talked about while he was running for president, one of the biggest issues is the fatherless home epidemic in the black community. And that's something that I've covered relationship-wise on Clubhouse, YouTube for years. When you look at dating in America today among black people, I always say that if before we worry about everybody else's house, we got to get our own house in order. We still have a really high out of wedlock birth rate. There's still a gender war going on in the black community. What are your thoughts on dating in general, and as that correlates to politics in America and that intersectionality?
Dating when you love yourself isn't that hard, and it's not lonely either. So it's like, I think that a lot of people aren't willing to put the work in that's needed for themselves in order for them to start dating. A lot of the issues that we see in the black community are trauma responses. Fatherless homes, that comes from trauma. Just the high birth rate in us, the multiple baby daddies and stuff, like, that's another trauma response. So it's like, I think the issues that we see, the gender wars, all of it is trauma response. Like, the single parent household led to the gender wars that we had, because these gender wars weren't existing when our parents were dating. Nobody was arguing about who's going to take out the trash and who's going to pay the bills. We just knew what men and women did. Then feminists decided to come along and want to be equal to everybody. So now we don't know what's a man's job and what's a woman's job. And so now, unfortunately, a lot of black people, men and women, grew up seeing their moms do it all by themselves. So they're used to seeing women do everything. So you have this generation of women who don't know how to let a man lead because they've never seen it. Then you have these men who don't necessarily know how to be men because what? They've never seen it. They also don't know how to respect women because maybe they had a mom that didn't respect herself. And so they had 13 uncles growing up. And so now they think it's okay to have 13 women at any given time. Yeah, all of it. I mean, like, I hate to say it, but it's our fault. We enable these bad behaviors. So that's why I don't feel bad when I hear people complaining about them, because y'all aren't bold enough to get up and say this is wrong. Y'all instead want to talk down to the people who are like, we can do better. And you see that as being a black conservative. All you want is for us to do better. And yet it's us who are the first to attack you.
It is so interesting that is exactly what happens when you are a black person and you say, no, men have a role, women have a role. Now you're misogynist, now you're this and that. There was a content creator, he's not with us anymore, Kevin Samuels, and he said that we have, you know who that is, I'm sure. He said in the black community, what we have is an unnatural deference to women in every given context. And I think the single parent household being the dominant home, I think that has a lot to do with it. What would you say needs to be done to correct it? What does doing better look like from your perspective?
We have to start being okay with holding our friends accountable. We are too hell-bent on holding on to bad people, are hell-bent on holding on to people who we know could do better and refuse to do better. So, like, if your homeboy is a deadbeat dad, why are y'all still hooping with him, inviting him out to the club, hitting him up and playing the game with him? Like, sir, go take care of your child. If your homegirl is out here and she's like a glorified boyfriend stealer, man stealer, she out here sleeping with everybody's husband, why is she going to brunch with you? Why is she still invited to girls' night? Like, we need to isolate these people. Stop going around saying mama's baby, daddy's maybe, because you're making a safe space for men to fail at their obligation to be fathers, because you've already said it's expected that he's not going to be there. It's literally an expectation in the black community that the dad isn't going to be there. Because the second a black woman gets pregnant, we ask, well, what are you going to do?
That's true.
So it's like... I don't even know where to go after that one, but it's just, if we're going to do better, it's like, y'all got to be okay with leaving some niggas behind. Like, Harriet Tubman did not play that. So if we're really going to talk about Black empowerment, we really have to weed out the people who aren't empowering us. And so if somebody's not taking care of their kids, they do not deserve to be embraced, not by family, not by friends, not by anybody, until they step up to the plate and accept the responsibilities bestowed upon them. If a woman is out here not taking care of her kids, because we got deadbeat moms too, then we should not be telling her, oh yeah, girl, live your life. You young and turned city girl this, city girl that. No, because when that little girl grows up and has a disregard for everybody around her, who are we going to blame? Somebody gonna say it was the school's fault. Other people gonna be like, oh, y'all just don't like her because the white man taught you to hate yourself. Like, no, she's legitimately disruptive. Like, we cannot have this. And so it's like, when we think about how are we gonna do better, it literally starts within. Something as simple as stop letting the family molesters sit at Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah. Stop acting like it's cool that somebody is sleeping with somebody else's husband because it's your auntie or it's your mama. No, tell them about themselves. Because the thing about it is, when we misstep, folks don't waste a moment to tell us that, we messed up. Right. Yeah, for whatever reason, when we see missteps with other prominent people in our lives, we don't want to hold them accountable. We know Lil Delroy is out here sliding on the ops. Yeah, for whatever reason, mom over here talking about how wonderful of a son he is and sticking up for him when they talk about him in church. Your son is a murderer. Something needs to be done. But we over here praising Lil Delray because he didn't up the scope. Like, what? So it's just like, it's literally, it's us. It's us. It's the music we listen to. It's the entertainment. Like, look at how high of a ratings Baddies gets. Look at how rich Natalie Nunn got off Baddies. Look at how many women line up for the tryouts, where it's nothing but you gonna fight some strangers. That's all they do. Like, they already got the women for the next season picked out. It's never going to be you randoms. But y'all show up in droves to fight each other, let all your stuff hang out and fall out. And for what? And then you find out all the girls are competing for the same $5,000, $10,000. That's 20 girls. And it's like the fact that we don't have a nation of critical thinkers to where women could see that it's a $10,000 prize and not get through their head that that's $10,000 split between 20 people. You mean to tell me everybody getting $500? Y'all doing all this for $500?
Some of them struggling to get that $500. Some of them, that's what they need.
And it's like, yes, you get bookings and stuff afterwards, but bookings for what? And is this what you want your brand to be? You guys have children. Even if you don't have children, maybe you want to have children. Or some of y'all want to get married. Is this what you want your brand to be? The ratchet girl who fights and shakes her butt in the club all the time. Like, it's fun when you're young, but eventually we get to be 30 and up. Like, it's time for something different. Like, what's wrong with growing up and what's wrong with teaching the younger generation, hey, you can have your fun or whatever, but separate or learn how to compartmentalize. You can have fun, but you got to handle business first. A lot of us just party all the time. What are we celebrating?
But it's so funny when you have black leaders that try to tell us how to do things, when you have black leaders that try to tell us, move this way, do this. I've always said that most black people don't love their leaders until they're gone. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, Dr. King was probably the most hated black man of his own people while he was alive. It wasn't until he was murdered in 1968 that black people stopped hating him. They didn't even want him. I learned this recently. They didn't even want him visiting Harlem, New York. At the time that he was, he just finished up the civil rights movement and the March on Washington. And he's trying to organize the Poor People's Campaign, black people said, we want him out. We don't want him here. And it is so interesting that many of our leaders, their message goes unheard, uncared for until they've gone upstairs to be with the Lord.
And we do that with everybody. We don't give nobody their flowers till they're gone. It's like we just have this thing, and I think it all it stems from it's all a trauma response. It stems from slavery. Because think about it, Harriet Tubman wasn't celebrated. Everybody told her she was crazy. She better not do that. Folks was threatening to tell on her, all because she was like, this doesn't have to be our life. We don't have to die this way, And so Martin Luther King came along and did the same thing. And I think, once you also start to learn that, they studied black people so much so they knew that if they planted seeds of distrust within certain communities, that it would manifest itself in a way to where we would destroy ourselves. And so, like, that's why you saw people, you know, Harriet had to shoot a couple folks because they was about to run back and tell, you know. Martin Luther King, he had people coming to him who were working for the CIA, FBI, trying to bring him down. You see people like Fred Hampton went down because the dude needed $300, you know. And so it's like, they learned that if you plant these seeds of distrust, we come together so tightly that if enough of us say, don't do this, or we don't like this person, we're all collectively going to not do this or not like this person. It's always been that way. And so, like, that's why Black culture, the good part about it is that's how we've been able to preserve a lot of the good things about us. However, that's also how we've preserved a lot of the awful things about us. And what's unfortunate is now we are focusing more on the negative attributes that are a part of Black culture than we are looking at the positives. And the things that we see as synonymous with Black culture, you know, the unfortunates, the single motherhood, you know, the violence, all of these things are things that we should be focusing on fixing, because those are stereotypes you would think we would want to get away from. Like white people, Hispanics, Asians, any of their negative stereotypes, they made sure 2 generations ago that they worked to get rid of them. Yet now, Black people are the only ones who are okay with perpetuating stereotypes, if not exploiting them.
Oh, the exploitation piece is, I think, a great point to make, because I remember, I realized this one day. What was it that motivated us to start trying to get off the plantation? Songs, music. We used to sing Negro spirituals. So we went from We Shall Overcome to, no offense, Glorilla, Megan Thee Stallion on stage. Like, there was a point where, and I said this, the devil was a minister of music, you know, and his deliberate translation of music from one generation to another to try to poison our minds. We used it once to uplift, now we use it to demean. And I think, do you think if we could change the music, the culture could change?
Absolutely, because you got to think about how a lot of us shaped our personalities, and the friendships that we engaged in when we were younger was based off the music and the entertainment that we indulged in. So if you were super into gangster rap and all that other stuff, you typically tried to hang out with the hood dudes, the gangsters. You wanted to be cool with the ghetto girls. You wanted to be ghetto yourself. But for the Black kids that we call white, who listen to punk music and rock music and all that, and they associated with people who also did that, a lot of times they didn't look like us. And we called them outcasts or whatever, but you didn't see them fighting and stuff all the time. And you didn't see they brothers and cousins shooting up everybody. Like, we made fun of them for talking properly and for not sagging their pants. Like, we literally made fun of them for not being walking stereotypes. And so I think that if we're going to eliminate those things, we would have to, one, put more support behind positivity, which is something we don't do, because we have a show like Baddies, but why isn't there more documentaries on women who have, you know, really come up in this space? Kamala Harris should have had a documentary long before this. As soon as she made VP, there should have been a documentary out, you know, but instead we got Baddies in Love and Hip Hop, you know. Even we don't have a lot of Black women on our side, so I gotta list the other ones. But like your Jasmine Clarks or your, who is the Reclaiming My Time? Maxine Waters. Or even like Candace Owens, like documentaries about women who come from non-traditional backgrounds who made a way in this space, you know, like something to give you something to believe in. We're not getting that. We're raising our girls to think that your only objective should be to look good and to, you know, be the best sex doll you could possibly be for the richest man that you can possibly find. And it's like, that's all right if you're trying to set your daughter up to just be somebody's, you know, plaything, but playthings don't get married. And we're really like setting up these unrealistic goals, because yes, you can live this fast life and you'll find men who will spend money on you, but in the same way that they saw you, basically bought you, got what they wanted, they can do that with the next girl and the next girl and the next girl and the next girl.